Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome to today's session, and I'm truly grateful for everyone to be here and participate in this discussion. I will start off with apologizing that I did not prepare as much as I wanted to for this. So I will appreciate and I will also expect from the audience here to help me expand the conversation and make it a enlivening discussion for everyone here. So um, first, I want to pay my respects. So, Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 रामा 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 हरे हरे. So we'll start out today with the reading. Sorry, I did not have this ready. Can we get, I think we do 3 volunteers every time, so there's about 37 verses, so yeah, about 11, 12 verses each. Does anyone want to volunteer? So that is Samaksh Prabhu and Vrinda Gopi, and then Nupur, and we need one more. One more. Uno más, por favor. Okay, we'll start, and then if we get another volunteer, we'll continue. So either Vrinda Gopi or Samaksh Prabhu, do you want to start?
Sure, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Am I audible?
Sorry, yeah.
Okay. Chapter 33, Activities of Kapila. Text 1. Sri Maitreya said, Thus Devhuti, the mother of Lord Kapila and wife of Kardama Muni, became freed from all ignorance concerning devotional service and transcendental knowledge. She offered her obeisances unto the Lord, the author of the basic principles of Sankhya system of philosophy, which is the background of liberation. And she satisfied him with the following verses of prayer. Devahuti said, Brahma is said to be unborn because he takes birth from the lotus flower which grows from your abdomen while you lie in the ocean at the bottom of the universe. But even Brahma simply meditated upon you, whose body is the source of unlimited universe. My dear Lord, although personally you have nothing to do, you have distributed your energies in the interaction of the material modes of nature. And for that reason, the creation, maintenance, and dissolution of the cosmic manifestation takes place. My dear Lord, you are self determined and are the Supreme Personality of Godhead for all living entities. For them, you created this material manifestation, and although you are one, your diverse energies can act multifariously, thus inconceivable to us. As the Supreme Personality of okay, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, you have taken birth from my abdomen. O my Lord, how is that possible for the Supreme One who has in his belly all the cosmic manifestation? The answer is that it is possible, for at the end of the millennium you lie down on the leaf of a banyan tree, and just like a small baby, you lick the toe of your lotus foot. My dear Lord, you have assumed the body in order to diminish the sinful activities of the fallen and to enrich their knowledge in devotion and liberation. Since since these sinful people are dependent on your direction, by your own will, you assume incarnations as a boar and as other forms. Similarly, you have appeared in order to distribute transcendental knowledge to your dependents. To say nothing of the spiritual advancement of a person who sees the Person face to face. Even a person born in a family of dog eaters immediately becomes eligible to perform Vedic sacrifices if he once utter the holy name of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or chants about him, hears about his pastimes, offer him obeisances, or even remembers him. Oh, how glorious are they whose tongue Oh, how glorious are they whose tongues are chanting your holy name. Even if born in the families of dog eaters, such persons are worshipable. Persons who chant the holy name of your Lordship must have executed all kinds of austerities and fire sacrifice and achieved all the good manners of the Aryans. To be chanting the holy name of your Lordship, they must have bathed at the holy places of pilgrimage, studied the Vedas, and fulfilled everything required. I believe, my Lord, that you are Lord Vishnu himself under the name of Kapila, and you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Supreme Brahman. The saints and sages, being freed from all disturbances of the senses and mind, meditate upon you, for by your mercy only can one become free from the clutches of the three modes of material nature. At the time of dissolution, all the Vedas are sustained in you only. Thus, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Kapila, satisfied by the words of his mother, towards whom he was very affectionate, replied with gravity. The Personality of Godhead said, "My dear mother, the path of self realization, which I have already instructed to you, is very easy. You can execute this system without difficulty, and by following it, you shall very soon be liberated even within your present body. My dear mother, those who actually those who are actually transcendentalists certainly follow my instruction as I have given them to you. You may rest assured that if you traverse this path of self-realization perfectly, surely you shall be freed from fearful material contamination and shall ultimately reach me. Mother, persons who are not conversant with this method of devotional service certainly cannot get out of the cycle of birth and death. Should I read more, Mataji, or that's it?
Thank you, Prabhu. I think we can move to the
Okay.
next reader. So, Nupur, do you want to read the next 11 verses?
Hare Krishna. Sri Maitreya said, "The Supreme Personality of Godhead Kapila, after instructing his beloved mother, took permission from her and left his home, his mission having been fulfilled. As instructed by her son, Devahuti also began to practice Bhakti Yoga in that very ashram. She practiced Samadhi in the house of Kadama Muni, which was so beautifully decorated with flowers that it was considered the flower crown of the river Saraswati. She began to bathe 3 times daily, and thus her curling black hair gradually became gray. Due to austerity, her body became gradually became thin, and she wore old garments. The home and household paraphernalia of Kardama, who was one of the Prajapatis, was developed in such a way, by dint of his mystic powers of austerity and yoga, that his opulence was sometimes envied by those who travel in outer space in airplanes. The opulence of the household of Kardama Muni is described herein. The bed sheets and mattresses were all as white as the foam of milk. The chairs and benches were made of ivory and were covered by cloths of lace with golden filigree, and the couches were made of gold and had very soft pillows. The walls of the house were made of first class marble, decorated with valuable jewels. There was no need of light, for the household was illuminated by the rays of these jewels. The female members of the household were all amply decorated with jewelry. The compound of the house of the main household was surrounded by beautiful gardens with sweet, fragrant flowers and many trees, which produced fresh fruit and were tall and beautiful. The attraction of such gardens was that singing birds would sit on the trees, and their chanting voices, as well as the humming sounds of the bees, made the whole atmosphere as pleasing as possible. When Devahuti would enter that lovely garden to take her bath in the pond filled with lotus flowers, the associates of the denizens of heaven, the Gandharvas, would sing about Kardama's glorious household life. Her great husband, Kardama, gave her all protection at all times. Although her position was unique from all points of view, saintly Devahuti, in spite of all her possessions, which were envied even by the ladies of the heavenly planets, gave up all such comforts. She was only sorry that her great son was separated from her. Devahuti's husband had already left home and accepted the renounced order of life, and then her only son, Kapila, left home. Although she knew all the truths of life and death, and although her heart was cleansed of all dirt, she was very aggrieved at the loss of her son, just as cow is affected when her calf dies. O Vidura, thus always meditating upon her son, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Kapiladev, she very soon became unattached to her nicely decorated home. Thereafter, having heard with great eagerness and in all detail from her son, Kapiladev, the eternally smiling personality of Godhead, Devahuti began to meditate constantly upon the Vishnu form of the Supreme Lord. Thank you.
Thank you. And then Kameshwar Prabhu, do you want to finish us off here?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
She did so with serious engagement in devotional service. Because she was strong in renunciation, she accepted only the necessities of the body. She became situated in knowledge due to realization of the absolute truth. Her heart became purified. She became fully absorbed in meditation upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and all misgivings due to the modes of material nature disappeared. Her mind became completely engaged in the Supreme Lord, and she automatically realized the knowledge of the impersonal Brahman. As a Brahman realized soul, she was freed from the designations of the materialistic concept of life. Thus, all material pangs disappeared, and she attained transcendental bliss. Situated in eternal trance and freed from illusion impelled by the modes of material nature, she forgot her material body, just as one forgets his different bodies in a dream. Her body was being taken care of by the spiritual damsels created by her husband, Kartama, and since she had no mental anxiety at that time, her body did not become thin. She appeared just like a fire surrounded by smoke. Because she was always absorbed in the thought of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, she was not aware that sometimes her hair was loosened or her garments were disarrayed. Dear Vidura, by following the principles instructed by Kapila, Devahuti soon became liberated from material bondage and achieved Supreme Personality of Godhead as Supersoul without difficulty. The place where Devahuti achieved her perfection, my dear Vidura, is understood to be a most sacred spot. It is known all over the three worlds as Siddhapada. Dear Vidura, the material elements of her body have melted into water and are now a flowing river, which is the most sacred of all rivers. Anyone who bathes in that river also attains perfection, and therefore all persons who desire perfection go bathe there. My dear Vidura, the great sage Kapila, the personality of Godhead, left his father's hermitage with the permission of his mother and went towards the northeast. While he was passing in the northern direction, all the celestial denizens known as the Charanas and Gandharvas, as well as the Munis and the damsels of the heavenly planets, prayed and offered him all respects. The ocean offered him oblations and a place of residence. Even now, Kapila Muni is staying there in trance for the deliverance of the conditioned souls in the three worlds, and all the acharyas are great teachers of the system of Sankhya philosophy are worshipping him. My dear son, since you have inquired from me, I have answered. O sinless one, the descriptions of Kapila and his mother and their activities are the purest of all pure discourses. The description of the dealings of Kapila and his mother is very confidential, and anyone who hears or reads this narration, it becomes a devotee of the Personality of Godhead, who is carried by Garuda, and he thereafter enters into the abode of Supreme Lord to engage in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for all the readers for enthusiastically taking us through the last chapter of this section of the Bhagavatam. So this chapter is titled Activities of Kapila, Lord Kapildev, and it contains also the prayers of Devahuti to Lord Kapila. It has the activities of the final activities of Kapila, and it also has the activities of Devahuti as well. And it's a wonderful chapter that sums up what we've been studying for the past couple of weeks, and it also sets an example for us, who is Devahuti, and how she is an exceptional personality because to me, what stands out the most about her is that every single decision that she made in her life was geared towards becoming Krishna conscious and engaging in devotional service. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that later in the presentation. But yeah, that's the importance of this chapter. It sums up what Lord Kapila has taught us through the Sankhya philosophy. It sums up the what Devahuti learned and took away from Kapila Dev's instructions, and in the end, how Kapila Dev left his mother to execute her practice, and that was the purpose of his appearance in this material world. So I think everyone is pretty familiar with Sankhya philosophy now, since we've been studying it for the past couple of weeks, and the previous presenters have done an excellent job of explaining what Sankhya philosophy is. And so as we know, so this is, just a repeat of what you all already know, but Lord Kapila is the author of the Sankhya philosophy, Sankhya Yoga, and it is about and the it is about liberation. And what does liberation mean? We talked about that in previous classes, but liberation essentially means being free from Maya. And what is Maya? Maya is the Lord's illusory energy that acts upon living entities, especially that are in the material world. And so regarding Maya, so what's Maya's number one game that she plays on living entities, and what's the number one illusion that human beings or jivas are put under? Does anyone want to attempt?
We are not the body.
Yep, that's the number one thing that Maya does, is puts us in illusion of thinking that we are, well, we are our body. We are under illusion that we are our body. So that's what Maya does to us. And that's an excellent way to get the human beings to do everything else that keeps them in illusion. So once we feel and believe that we are a body, then we start accumulating more wealth. We start, getting involved in bodily relationships. We start working for the body. We start having more and more desires. We start hankering after desires. We get anxiety if we don't get what we want. And all of that stems from this bodily identification. So getting free from Maya means understanding that we are not our body. And that is what is taught through Sankhya Yoga and Sankhya philosophy, because it teaches us how to be liberated. And how does it teach us how to be liberated? It's not that we have to die and then we get another body that's liberated, or that we die and then we become liberated. It's Jivan Mukti. So in this body itself, we can be liberated. And that's what's taught through Sankhya philosophy. The other aspect of it is how material nature is subordinate to Mahavishnu. So that's a very key concept of this philosophy, and that's what sets it apart from the atheistic Sankhya philosophy, which is similar but very different in terms of what they believe, which is material nature is the source of material nature, which sounds ridiculous, but that's what they believe, that, the Big Bang created the whole universe, and so material created material, and then there's no overriding God that created anything. But we don't believe that, and that's not what is taught in our Sankhya philosophy. That's imparted by Lord Kapila Dev, because according to this philosophy, material nature is subordinate to Mahavishnu. So the Lord has an energy that creates, and that is subordinate to him. So Maya Dikshena Prakriti Suyate Characharam. So this is the energy of the Lord. The whole Prakriti has a Purusha which controls the entire material world and material creation, and it acts according to the direction of the Lord. It's not that the material energy is on its own doing its own thing per science, or um, uh, per its own rules and regulations. It's governed by the Lord. It is directed. It is being directed by the Lord. And so this is also something that is inherent in Lord Chaitanya's instruction, which is achintya bheda bheda tattva, simultaneous oneness and difference. So this is important to understand, because even though the Lord creates the whole material energy, he is not a part of it, which means he is not subordinate to it. So he is not subject to the laws of the material world, even though he might appear in the material world by his own will. doesn't mean that he is under the jurisdiction of the material world. And so this is taught through Lord Chaitanya's instructions, and it's important to understand and not get confused that, you know, just because the Lord appears or that the Lord is the governor of this whole material creation, that he is in any way impacted by that creation. He is the creator of it, but he is apart from it. So in the Isha Upanishad, there's a verse that says, Tadejati tannejati tadure tadvantike tadantarasya sarvasya tadu sarvasya sabhayataha. So this means that the Supreme Lord, he walks but doesn't walk. He's far away, but he's very near. And he's within everything, yet he is outside of everything. So even in the Brahma Samhita, there's a verse that says, Eko pisora chaitum jagadanda kotim yachaktirasti jagadanda jagadanda chatyayadanta antantarasta paramanu chayantarastam govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. So Krishna is in every single atom of this universe. But at the same time, he's within everything and he is outside of everything as well. So what does that really mean to us? It means that we should see everything as belonging to Krishna, and we should understand that everything is being directed by Krishna, but we should not associate, you know, material nature as being overarching over Krishna. He is above all of material nature. And so that's what we need to understand. But by understanding that that Krishna is in every single atom and is everywhere around us, it becomes easy to be Krishna conscious, because we see Krishna in every living being. We see Krishna in everything that we see. Everything that we do becomes about Krishna, because everything is owned by Krishna, it's created by Krishna, and it is for Krishna. So that's why it's important to understand this philosophy that Krishna is within everything and he is outside of everything as well. So this Sankhya philosophy is also described in the Bhagavad Gita, which is the second chapter. Another title for the second chapter is Sankhya Yoga. And so in this chapter of the Bhagavatam, there's a verse that says that we should not consider the Sankhya Yoga and Bhakti Yoga to be any different. They're one and the same. So Lord Krishna instructed Arjuna on the battlefield about the nature of the soul and the material nature, and how, you know, we shouldn't be distressed by the happiness and distress that comes naturally, and what the nature of this material world is, and what the nature of us is, which is our soul, which is eternal, and how it is our duty to be engaged in devotional service and perform everything for Krishna. And so this is in line with Sankhya philosophy, which teaches us the nature of the material world, how there's a Purusha that governs over the material world, and how our dharma is to perform devotional service to the Supreme Lord. And so this last verse here says, Sankhya Yoga Prathak Bala Pravadanti Na Pandita. So this verse basically says that the people who consider Sankhya Yoga and Bhakti Yoga to be different are foolish or are not intelligent. So yeah, there is no difference between Sankhya Yoga and Bhakti Yoga. So any questions before we move on, or any comments?
It's sorry, just this Sankhya Yoga Prithak Balaha. It's interesting, like the results of I'm just looking up this verse. Only the ignorant speak of devotional service as being different from the analytical study of the material world. Those who are actually learned say that he who applies himself well to one of these paths achieves the results of both. Yeah, this is very interesting because we've always heard that Sankhya is liberation. Like here also, Sankhya is liberation, it's written. And but on the other hand, we say that what bhakti gives us is beyond liberation. In fact, one of the characteristics of bhakti is moksha labhutakrit, which means that, even moksha is like it seems like laghu, seems like a very small thing in front of bhakti. So yeah, I'm just trying to understand that. If you have any thoughts on that, Mataji.
So what I think is the context of liberation here is in the sense that we are performing devotional service to the Lord without with being freed from Maya, or being freed from the three modes of material nature, as opposed to maybe like a impersonalistic liberation. And so that's why I think the path of Bhakti Yoga and Sankhya Yoga are considered almost like interchangeable, or the verse says that, yeah, if you follow either of those you will reach perfection, is because even in the Sankhya Yoga the philosophy doesn't say that you shall meditate on the impersonal form of the Lord or anything like that. I mean, Lord Kapila is very upfront and very specific about what Devahuti should be doing, which is, devotional service and meditating on the Lord and engaging in his service. So those are just my thoughts.
Got it, Mataji. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, so let's move on. So this is the next part of the chapter where the Devahuti is offering her prayers to Lord Kapila. And these are only a few verses, I think, are like around maybe even less than 10 verses of her prayers. But they're very special because even within only 10 verses, she accomplishes a lot. So she, like most other prayers, she glorifies the Lord. She repeats, or I guess she repeats and conveys back what she understood from Kapil Dev's instructions to her. And then she is very grateful, thankful, and appreciative of the Lord as well. And all of these she accomplishes in only a few verses. So that's why these verses are very special, and one can even memorize them, and in just 10 verses your prayers become very strong, just like how Devahuti's prayers are so strong. And what also makes this special is because Lord Kapila is her son, and even though he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the fact that Devahuti is so and Devahuti knows this for sure, that this is her son is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but still she's so humbly submitting herself to her son to listen to his instructions and then offer prayers to him. So that's what makes this so special. So in her prayers, Devahuti glorifies the Lord. So she says that he is Brahma's Lord. So Brahma is her grandfather. So she's the daughter of Swayambhu Manu, who is the son of Lord Brahma. And so she's saying that her grandfather, who is the architect of the whole universe, even he meditates on you, the Supreme Lord. So that's why you're glorious. Because even Brahma is glorious, and even glorious than Brahma is Lord Krishna. She also says how Krishna emanates everything but is untouched. So we covered that in the last slide. Krishna is the creator of this whole material world, but still he's aloof from it. and it acts according to his direction. But living entities are given minute independence, and there's the Prakriti that executes its job, and the Lord governs everything, but he is still aloof from everything that goes on. The next point is Krishna subjected himself to be known by authoritative scriptures. So I thought this was interesting because Krishna, who no one can really know and no one can understand, uh, for our sake, to give us mercy in trying and giving us a path to try to understand him, he, out of his own kind will, he subjected himself to be known by these authoritative scriptures. And that's why these scriptures have authority, is because Krishna gave the scriptures authority, not because someone great wrote these scriptures. It's because Krishna subjected himself to these scriptures. It was because of his will. And so that's why we need to take shelter of scriptures, because that is essentially Krishna's instructions to us, is that you shall know me by studying the scriptures. Just like when you buy a new washing machine and you have to figure out how you're going to operate it, and you pull out the manual. And so that washing machine is given authority to the manual to figure out how to use it. That's a very crude example, but that in that way, we are able to at least attempt to understand the Lord through the scriptures. And so Devahuti says this in her prayers because she accepts that authority, and she accepts the instruction that Lord Kapila gave to her. And then she also talks about why Krishna created the material world. And Krishna created the material world so that the little jivas who have their little minute independence can lord it over the material nature, because that's what they had the desire to do. So the material world is very complex. There's lots of different kinds of living entities that experience very different lives and very interesting experiences throughout their life, and have very interesting desires. There's from small bacteria to huge, huge mammals. Everyone has a particular body that is a result of their karma and their desires. And so this whole complex world Krishna created because of the complexity of the desires of the jivas. And so it's a wonderful creation of Krishna, which is complete, just like how in the Isha Upanishad, the first verse is Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnad Mudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. So the Lord is complete, and from the Lord who is complete, there are complete wholes that are emanated. And any incompleteness is a incomplete knowledge of the complete. So whatever we might think that is missing from the world, or that's wrong from the world, or I don't think any of you guys think this, but there's people that think that, oh, it would have been better if it was like this, but that's because of an incomplete knowledge of the complete whole. So we don't understand the purpose of the world. We don't understand what our purpose is, and that's why we see faults in the material world. But the material world is perfectly, very artistically designed for its own purpose, which is to allow the living entities to be their own little lords very minutely, or at least be in the illusion of being their own little lords and experience their own little lives, because at some point we wanted to enjoy separate from Krishna. And so for that purpose, the Lord created this world, and in that sense, the world is a perfect creation. The next point that Devahuti mentions is her gratefulness to Lord Kapila to take birth from her womb. So she says that, you are the Lord of the universe. Everything is inside of you. Everything that exists, will ever exist, did exist in the past. Everything is inside of you, yet you took birth in my womb. And for her, that's such an appalling thing, but at the same time, she understands that because she says also in that verse that at the end of when the universe is annihilated, the form that Krishna takes is as a baby on a leaf sucking his toe. And so if the Lord can take that kind of a form, why can't he take birth from my womb? And so we should also understand, the Lord took birth from Devahuti's womb because she was a glorious, glorious personality. Like I said in the beginning, she was, since the very beginning, of her life, every single decision she took was to become more advanced in devotional service. So she was a princess, daughter of Swayambhu Manu, lived in all kinds of opulence that we can't even imagine. And going from that to the hermitage of Kardama Muni is a lot. I mean, it's a huge sacrifice, and the only reason why she performed that so-called sacrifice was because she knew that Kardama Muni was a devotee of the Lord, and a glorious devotee of the Lord that was performing devotional service so perfectly. And so she knew that by having such a husband, that she will also be engaged in serving a Vaishnava and understanding the practice of devotional service. So she married Kardama Muni. Then she had her son, who was the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and she served her husband, profusely. He was so pleased with her because she sacrificed everything for him. She wasn't even paying attention to herself. She had given up all her opulence that she had, when she was unmarried, and accepted the situation that she was in, and very lovingly served her husband and brought up her son. And then when Kardama Muni left home, she was very happily under the protection of her son, and not only just under the physical protection of the son, under the spiritual protection of her son as well. So she made the decision to take instruction from her son on Sankhya Yoga and performing devotional service. So she was a great personality, and that's why the Lord took birth from her womb. And so why does the Lord appear in the material world is to like we understand in the Bhagavad Gita, Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkritam, so to deliver the devotees and to annihilate the miscreants and to establish the process of dharma. The Lord appears, and so he did that through his form as Lord Kapila by instructing Devahuti, and also showing by example, by practicing the process of Sankhya Yoga, and teaching to the rest of the world how to achieve the perfection of life. And then Devahuti also establishes the glories of the Supreme Lord by saying that sages meditate upon him, and that by his mercy one is freed from the three modes of material nature. So it's only by his mercy that one can be freed from the three modes of material nature, because the Lord is the creator of the material nature. And so the only way to escape the material nature or be freed from it is by his mercy, and which is by performing devotional service. And then she also glorifies by saying that he sustains the Vedas during dissolution, and the Vedas are what he subjected himself to be known by. And so that's why he preserves them even after the dissolution. Any comment or question on this before we move on? Okay, so I picked two verses that have the spotlight because these are very popular verses and very important. So is there anyone that wants to read this verse in translation? Yes, Jagannath Gopal Prabhu, please go ahead. Thank you.
यन्नामधेय श्रवणानुकीर्तनाद् यत् प्रवणाद् यत् स्मरणाद् अपि क्वचित् स्वादोऽपि सद्यः सवनाय कल्पते कुतः पुनस्ते भगवन्नुदर्शनात्. To say nothing of the spiritual advancement of persons who see the Supreme Person face to face. Even a person born in a family of dog eaters immediately becomes eligible to perform Vedic sacrifices. If he once utters the holy name of the Supreme Personality of Godhead or chants about him, hears about his pastimes, offers him obeisances, or even remembers him.
Thank you, Prabhu. Yeah, so this verse is very important and special for us, especially because of the glorifying of the holy names that Devahuti does in this verse. And so as chanters of Hare Krishna, this really, touches our heart because we understand how important it is to chant the name of the Lord, and how the Lord has presented himself completely in his name, which is accessible to us at any time, any place, any situation that we're in. And that's, the mercy of the Lord. And by chanting his name, here it says that there's a comparison of the most abominable activity to the most pious activity. So she says that even a person born in a family of dog eaters, the most abominable activity one can perform, becomes eligible to perform Vedic sacrifices. So that's the most pious activity anyone can perform. So bridging that gap is a lot if you were to try to purify yourself by other methods. But by chanting the holy name of the Lord, by hearing his glories, by offering him obeisances, or even remembering him, one bridges that gap pretty fast. And not only that, one becomes situated in devotional service and gains the opportunity to go back to Godhead. So yeah, then the next time anyone you meet says that they're too sinful to chant the holy name, you can memorize this verse and recite it and tell them that even once chanting the holy name of the Lord can perform immense amounts of purification for even the most sinful person. And then the next verse is also another glorification of the holy name. So, and can we get another volunteer to read? Going once, going twice. Okay. Sure, Prabhu, go ahead.
I mean, yeah. Anyone else wants to recite, dear devotees? Nupur, you had unmuted. Do you want to? Okay, Nitya Mataji. Yes. Sorry.
Oh, Nupur, go ahead. Nupur, please go ahead.
Sorry, Mataji. No, Mataji, I didn't unmute. Please go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I missaw.
I don't know the meter, but I'll try. Aho batasva pachato gariyan yajjivagre vartate namatubhyam te pustapaste juhur so shashnurarya brahmanuchurnamagite. Oh, how glorious are they whose tongues are chanting your holy name. Even if born in the families of dog eaters, such persons are worshipable. Persons who chant the holy name of your Lordship must have executed all kinds of austerities and fire sacrifices and achieved all the good manners of the Aryans. To be chanting the holy name of your Lordship, they must have bathed at holy places of pilgrimage, studied the Vedas, and fulfilled everything required.
Thank you, Mataji. Yeah, sorry, I didn't want to put anyone on the spot here. Just I think hearing other devotees' voices kind of breaks the monotonous voice of me. So, um, but yeah, thank you for reading. So yeah, this verse again, it shows us the glories of the holy name and how even chanting the holy name is the mercy of the Lord, and it's doesn't come without previous austerities and sacrifices and having all this background history of where our soul has been and performed. And now, there's devotees chanting the holy names of the Lord, and it's not by uh, luck, as they say, that they're chanting the name of the Lord. It's all by um, the previous sacrifices and auspicious activities that the souls have performed to get to a point to even chant the holy names of the Lord. And so we should never take it lightly, the chanting of the holy name. It takes a lot to even get to a point to chant. And just observing all the living entities around us, even just observing the human beings around us. I mean, people go on devotees go on book distribution and they try to make the passersby chant or say Krishna once, and some are very adamant, like they don't want to even entertain saying Krishna or the Mahamantra or anything. And so, that could easily have been us in the past. I mean, who knows? So the the fact that we are in a position to understand the glories of the holy name and to chant the holy name is a huge, huge deal. It's durlabham, it's very rare, and so it should be taken very seriously. And Devahuti is saying the same thing here, where um, uh, chanting the holy name of the Lord is the topmost activity. And so everything is a path to this activity of chanting. Everything that we perform, all the pious activities, all the auspicious, bathing in holy places and studying the Vedas and all of that leads to the perfect position of chanting the holy name. And so that should never be taken lightly. Okay, so after Devahuti offers her prayers to the Lord, Lord Kapila becomes very pleased with Devahuti, and he says his closing statement before he takes off from his father's hermitage. So he says to Devahuti that the path of self-realization is very easy and one can be liberated in the present body. So like we discussed earlier, it's Jivan Mukti. So even within this own body of ours, we can become liberated. And once we become liberated, then the onslaught of the material world, the happiness and distresses, the changes that happen throughout life don't bother us anymore, because we are situated on an elevated platform where we understand the dealings of the material world, the Prakriti with the Purusha, and we understand the nature of the soul, and so we are not disturbed by the dealings of the material nature. So regardless of where one is situated, if he serves the Lord, he becomes a Jivan Mukta. Yena tena prakarena. Any way you can, you should serve the Lord in whatever situation there is. There is no formula for performing devotional service or any specific situation that you need to be in to perform devotional service. Instead, any situation that you're in, whether someone is rich or someone is poor, someone is happy, someone is sad, you should go on performing your devotional service. You should go on chanting, and by performing that kind of devotional service, which is unmotivated and uninterrupted, is one becomes a Jivan Mukta, that is liberated in this material body. The next point that Lord Kapila says in his final words to Devahuti is that, or I guess this is in the purport of the verse, but liberation is understood by activities and not the symptoms. So once one achieves liberation, there are certain symptoms that one can experience, like Devahuti experienced that we'll read in the next slide, like she's not paying attention to her body anymore. She's growing like she's not paying attention to her clothing. She's becoming thin, and those are symptoms. Those aren't those are symptoms of performing devotional activities. And so it's important to understand that that liberation is understood by the actual activities instead of the symptoms. So I heard this story from or this example from Vishishika Maharaj the other day. So there was a pregnant woman, and she was gonna deliver her baby pretty soon. So she went to the hospital to check out like the maternity ward and meet the nurses. And so she goes there and she sees that a woman is a mother is actually giving birth. And so she sees that the mother is screaming and expressing her pain, and she's very distressed and making lots of loud screaming noises. And so this lady observes that. She goes home and she starts screaming and crying in distress and practicing all those symptoms. And so the moral of that story is that that those are symptoms. Those are the actual activity. The giving birth results in the symptoms of the painful screams and the distress. It's not like you emulate the symptoms to practice giving birth. And so in a similar way, as we perform devotional service, we become more purified. That results in natural symptoms, and being absorbed in the Lord naturally because of performing our devotional service and because of surrendering to the Lord, we can experience some certain symptoms. But just looking for those symptoms without seeing the actual activity of the individual, we cannot judge whether that person is liberated or not. We have to focus on the activity. And for us, that's devotional service. So Lord Kapila also says that freedom from fearful material condition and all anxieties is achieved by following the process of Sankhya Yoga. And if you do not perform devotional service, you will get stuck in the birth and death cycle forever. So this is coming from the Lord that, devotional service is the only way. Harir Nama, Eva Kevalam. Eva Kevalam. That's the only way. Lord Krishna, who has created everything, tells us that this is the only way. So it's a pretty good argument to believe him if the creator of everything and the Lord of everything is telling us how to get out of this material world. And he's saying that's the only way. And so we should believe that that is really the only way. Um, okay, any comments or questions before we get into the last few slides? Okay. So after Lord Kapila gives his final instructions, he takes off from his parents' hermitage and he sets off for the north. And then Devahuti is now staying in the Kardama Muni's ashram with her spiritual, maidservants who are serving her while she is practicing her bhakti and samadhi at home per her son's instructions. And so she is, practicing everything like a brahmana, bathing 3 times a day. A natural symptom of her practicing bhakti is that her hair is becoming gray, her body is becoming thin. She's not paying attention to, the garments that are now becoming old. And to keep in mind, Gardama Muni's ashram is very opulent. I mean, the as we read in the actual chapter, there's jewel. The whole ashram um, is brightened by the jewels that are inside, and there's so much opulence inside the ashram, but still Devahuti's renunciation is marvelous. Like she is despite having so much, she's not attached to it at all, and she's not interested in enjoying any of that opulence either. But she is very focused on performing everything that her son has asked her to follow. So, Kardama Muni's ashram was envied by the denizens of the heavens and the space travelers because of how opulent that it was, and that was out of Kardama Muni's uh, his abilities and his because of his renunciation and his practice and devotional service. It was Krishna's mercy to him to have, such an opulent home. Kardama Muni always gave Devahuti protection at all times. Even when he went away, he entrusted her to her son. And even when her son went away, he provided the ashram for her so that she could properly practice her bhakti. And Devahuti was not at all attached to any of the comforts that she had. She lived very austerely even inside the opulent hermitage that she had, and she was deeply aggrieved by the separation from her son. And she was very distressed that her son had left, but one should not think that that kind of distress is similar to um, a mother being attached to a material son. She was attached to the Lord who came as her son. And so being attached to the Lord is beneficial for us because we get freed um, from the material world, and we also develop a relationship with the Lord. But by being attached to material relationships, we just get more and more entangled. So that's why Devahuti's being attached to her son was ideal because she was in fact attached to the Lord. And so yeah, without transfer of our attachment to the Lord, we cannot be freed from material attachment. And impersonalists who supposedly are not attached to anything at all will eventually fall down because of that lack of attachment to the Lord. And to get free again from the cycle of birth and death, like Krishna says, there's only one way, and that's getting attached to the Lord. So
I just have one question, Mataji, from the previous
yeah,
slide.
yeah,
So, from a practical viewpoint, so we tend to be attached to our daughters, sons, spouses, and so on, even though we know that we want them to become devotees or they are devotees. So, how do we practically follow in the footsteps of Mother Devahuti here? In the sense that how do we transfer that attachment into pure Krishna conscious attachment? Like, how can we start thinking that I'm attached to this person because they are a devotee of Krishna? I don't know if I'm making sense, but I'm just, there's a very thin line between material attachment and spiritual attachment here, is what I'm trying to say.
yeah. I think that there is a fine line between, getting materially attached to someone versus getting spiritually attached to someone. But I think that um, that is resolved by seeing that Krishna has given us these souls in our lives, um, and responsibility for us to cultivate the Krishna consciousness within these souls, especially when it comes to like children or family members. If we see them as a gift from Krishna to us to cultivate that Krishna consciousness within them, then attachment to them becomes spiritualized. Whereas if we see material relationships in the sense that we are trying to gain something from them, like you love someone so that you get loved back, or you love someone because you need them for a particular situation, then that becomes like a material attachment, and that can become harmful to us. But when we see relationships as, opportunities to cultivate Krishna consciousness within those souls for their own betterment, then those become very spiritual relationships.
Wonderful, Mataji. Thank you. So one is selfish and one is selfless, is what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if
Okay.
anyone else wants to add to that. Okay. So I'll go through the last two slides pretty quickly so that we can still keep some time for any further discussion. So, um, glories of Devahuti. And these are very, very important points, and this is why we should take the example of Devahuti from this whole pastime, is because she was serious in her devotional service. From the very beginning, she prioritized her devotional service, and she acted and made decisions in her life for betterment of her devotional service. She was strong in her renunciation. So she was living in an opulent house, but she had renounced everything. She was not attached to anything at all. She was only accepting bodily necessities. She was situated in knowledge that she had, and what does situated mean? So she had understood the knowledge, and she was enacting upon the knowledge that she got from her son. She had become fully purified by performing devotional service. She was absorbed in the meditation of the Lord. She was free from all the misgivings of the material nature that naturally happened because she performed devotional service. And because the process of Sankhya Yoga is complete, it also includes knowledge of the impersonal Brahman. So that comes as a byproduct of becoming realized and becoming surrendered to Krishna, that you naturally just understand and gain knowledge of the impersonal Brahman. So um I have a friend who when I met her, she was into like impersonal meditation. And she still used to come to the temple, and she was very, very, religious, and but she really liked impersonal meditation. And we used to tell her, like, this is the perfect path, this is the ultimate path. So you should, meditate on the holy name instead of this impersonal meditation. And she used to always say that, no, this is my path. I was born to be on this impersonal path. Even though I know this might be a greater path, I'm still going to continue on my path. And she was very, very adamant about staying in her impersonal meditation. But over the years, by Krishna's mercy, by the mercy of devotees, by the mercy of prasadam, and by the mercy of Vaisheshika Maharaj, she has now become a full-time devotee. She has transformed her life. She has deities in her house. She has taken shelter of Vaisheshika Maharaj. She's performing devotional service. She's chanting the holy name. And so, that's the power of Krishna's name and Krishna's devotees. So Devahuti became freed from the designations of materialistic concept of life. So she forgot her body. That's why she wasn't paying attention to, what the condition of her body was. And she became liberated. And so Devahuti went to Kapila Vaikuntha. So that's the abode of Lord Kapila, where she eternally performs, a devotional service to Lord Kapila. She achieved her perfection in Siddhapad, which is still a place here in India. And the material elements of her body melted into the river. And anyone who bathes in that river achieves perfection. So after Lord Kapila left his home, he traveled north, and he went to the Himalayas, and the ocean gave him a residence at Gangasagar, which is the Bay of Bengal. He is still known to be there, distributing the transcendental knowledge, and worshippers still come there to pay their respects to Lord Kapila and understand Sankhya philosophy. So acharyas of the Sankhya system still worship him. There is a alternate Sankhya system which can be confusing to people which was represented by the impostor Kapila, but as I explained in the beginning, that's very different from what Lord Kapila has taught. And in the end, anyone who hears the activities of Kapila becomes his devotee and enters his abode in his loving service. So yeah, that's the end of my presentation. So I know we're out of time, but if there's any final comments or questions.
Hare Krishna. One question on the prayers of Mother Devahuti.
Prabhu, I can barely hear you. So
Okay. Is this better?
yes, it is. Thank you.
Okay, good. So, on the prayers of Mother Devahuti, I see that of the 7 verses, there are, the 7 verses, 6 and 7, glorifying the chanting of the holy name. And it seems that the only 2 verses which are talking about, so Kapila presented this whole Sankhya philosophy, all the, all the different things explained. I'm not finding anywhere where Lord Kapila talks about the holy name itself. And I didn't attend the previous classes, but I was just browsing through at a high level what he presented. Is there anything where he talks about the holy name and the chanting of the holy name? In the very beginning, it seems there is something about glorifying the activities of the Lord and hearing his katha and such. But is there any place where Lord Kapila talks about the holy name itself?
I don't know, Prabhu, so I will redirect the question to either Gaur Kumar Prabhu or Jagannath Gopal Prabhu, who might have more information on this.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, Prabhuji. I didn't notice that. Thank you for noticing it. But yeah, it would be good to go through the chapters again and see if there is something. I mean, I myself presented a few chapters in this section, but I don't seem to recall recall the any parts where Kapil Muni himself spoke about devotion. I mean, spoke about chanting. So
Uh,
let me see.
so, Sindhu Kanya Mataji, if you can open up this particular verse, 329:18. 329, chapter 29:18. And if you can read, in fact, this verse directly talks about the holy names. Uh, yeah, if you scroll down a little bit, and if you read you can, Nama Sankirtan is right there in the verse itself,
Yeah.
but you can read the translation also if you want. Manan Prabhu, I don't know if you can see.
Yes, I can.
Yeah,
A
a
devotee
devotee.
should always try to hear about spiritual matters and should always utilize his time in chanting the holy name of the Lord. His behavior should always be straightforward and simple, and although he is not envious but friendly to everyone, he should avoid the company of persons who are not spiritually advanced.
This is
Yes,
actually
thank
a
you.
very famous verse which talks about how a devotee should live, basically. So basically, we should hear about spiritual matters, utilize our time in chanting of the holy names. Not only that, but even our behavior should be straightforward and simple. And definitely, we should not be envious and we should be friendly to everyone. And we should avoid the company of persons who are not spiritually advanced. So, this one verse actually tells us a lot of things about how we should live our lives. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, bro.
Thank you so much, Varun. That's why we need devotees. I was asking ChatGPT. It it did not find this verse. It finds some other verses, but not this one. But yes, you're right. This classically talks about the holy name of the Lord.
Yeah, this is a nice way to test also, like whether devotees remember their sections. Anyway,
And there are other sections where we have seen the term devotional service repeated multiple times in the
yes,
last 4 or 5 weeks.
yeah.
And also there is explicit, mention of association, which is not the exact same as chanting that Manan Prabhu was, but devotional service association is mentioned. And Samaksh Prabhu's class also mentioned something. Yeah. So yeah, quite a few of these things are mentioned. They're interspersed throughout, I think.
Yeah, I mean, ChatGPT helped me find out references for Krishna Kirtan, hearing his katha and so on. So Shravanam is there, Kirtan is there, but I could not find the holy name. And
Yeah.
Madhu Devoti is like using the word Nama, like at least 3 or 4 times in those verses.
Actually, if you scroll down a little bit, Mataji, in the same purport, Srila Prabhupada actually, I think it's a very long purport, maybe. Yeah, write that paragraph. Yeah, right there. If you just read that paragraph, just
It is especially mentioned here, Nama Sankirtana cha. One should chant the holy names of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Either individually or with others. Lord Chaitanya was given special stress to chanting of these holy names of the Lord as the basic principle of spiritual advancement. Another word used here is arjavena, meaning without diplomacy. A devotee should not make plans out of self-interest. Of course, preachers sometimes have to make some plan to execute the mission of the Lord under proper guidance, but regarding personal self-interest, the devotee should always be without diplomacy, and we should avoid the company of persons who are not advancing in spiritual life.
Yeah. Thank you. Mataji, I had a question. I don't know if you have time.
Yeah, I have time. Sure.
Yeah, my question was about, there's a common phrase that we hear about going back home, back to Godhead. And here in this chapter, you mentioned the concept of Jivan Mukta, which is getting liberated while living and being in a liberated state while you're leading your life. So how do we understand these two, and what should a devotee aspire for? And yeah, that was the essential question.
So the aspiration for a devotee should always be to be the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant of the Lord 7 times removed. And so that is what the devotee is after, regardless of what situation that the Lord puts that devotee in. He or she always wants to be in service of the Lord. And so that is the ideal mentality that a devotee should have, is to be a servant of the Lord. But I think because of the troubles of the material world and the inconvenience that it causes human living entities, there's a natural tendency to want to escape from the material world, but um, which is not considered bad. I mean, it's not bad that you aspire to go back and serve Krishna in Goloka Vrindavan. But I think a pure devotee would ask the Lord that he or she always remains in service of the Lord. And so that's my understanding of what kind of what kind of aspirations we should have. Excuse me.
Got it. Got it. So even so, I'm just extrapolating from what you said. So even when we are living and we are spend living this life, as many years as we have left, we aspire to be the servant of the servant, 7 times removed of a pure devotee. I wouldn't be able to recognize a pure devotee, but of a devotee, then that is that equivalent to the liberated state. And so why so it, so sometimes, when I hear the term going back to Godhead, I back home, back to Godhead, I feel, at least I hear, like an escapist um, um, thing in it. Is that the right way to hear it, or am I not hearing it completely? Am I not hearing it right? Is it?
Yeah, it definitely can have an escapist type of mentality, because it depends on what your intentions are. If you are tired, I mean, I don't mean you specifically, but if you are tired of the troubles of the material world, and so now we hear descriptions that in Goloka Vrindavan you just play around in the grass with Krishna and dance to his flute. And so that sounds pretty great compared to, the material world, without actually cultivating that love for Krishna, or um, performing that sadhana and becoming firmly situated in devotional service. Then yeah, it seems like you want to just escape the troubles of the material world rather than going back to Krishna because you want to serve him and you want to make him happy and you want to engage in devotional service to him to please him. It seems more like a personal motive to get away from troubles of the material world. So that's why it's important to do a self-check on our aspirations and uh, really try to dig deep and understand, what it is that we're after. And that is, pure, unintentional, unmotivated service to Krishna. And that's why we should aspire to be in any situation that Krishna desires to put us in, but with the caveat that we want to always be a servant to him.
Thank you, Mataji. That was very clear.
This actually is a very interesting topic again, like, and I have spoken to devotees about this also. In fact, I did a small survey. I don't know if you all remember, I sent many of you, I sent a survey saying, and that survey had only one question. The question was, what, according to you, is Prabhupada's main teaching? Like, I don't even remember the question now. And devotees answered many things. Some devotees said, liberation from materialism. Some devotees said going back to Godhead. So many answers were there. But and of course, all the answers are correct, not that they are not correct. But then one answer that Garuda Prabhu is a scholar, a Prabhupada disciple. So he, in one of his articles in the ISKCON Communications Journal, he speaks about this. I think that article is about how to understand Prabhupada's difficult statements in his purports. So then, in that he proves how the main essential teaching of Prabhupada, like even within Prabhupada's teachings, there were hierarchies. It's not that everything Prabhupada, this is what again Chaitanya Prabhu also says. There is a hierarchy in teachings also. And the topmost teaching that Prabhupada gave was the uh, teaching of love of God. So how to develop our love for Krishna. That is like the topmost. And then all these other teachings, going back to Godhead and everything, they kind of are lower in the hierarchy. And that love for Krishna, Prema Pumarto Mahan, which is also what Mahaprabhu taught, right? One of the tenets of Mahaprabhu. So that is the, ultimate thing. So there is always this, yeah, as you mentioned, that it could be have an escapist tone to it, going back to Godhead. As Mataji mentioned, yeah, frolicking in Golok Vrindavan in the grass sounds very good. Sounds much better than miserably rotting in this material world, right? So we could have that, but yeah, that is not what is the essence of the teachings, I guess. Although Prabhupada does say going back to Godhead, going back to, which is a noble aspiration, don't get me wrong, which is a very noble aspiration. But that noble aspiration also, there is a motivation behind that. That motivation, okay, I want to go back to Godhead to engage in pure loving devotion service to Krishna. But if I'm thinking I want to go back to Godhead to escape from the world, then yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, these are very lofty things. I speak with less realization here. Others can add. Kaur Kumar Prabhu, Vamsidhar Gopal Prabhu.
I'm reconciling both your answers, and what I'm getting out of it, and is going back home, back to Godhead is almost a short form for going back to Goloka Vrindavan to serve
Yeah.
Krishna and his associates, to continue serving Krishna and his associates. That may be the, that's the full essence, but
Yeah.
in order for us to memorize it quickly, we just say going back home, back to Godhead. And but when maybe we should do an auto expand in our mind when we
Yeah.
think about it.
Yeah, because Vaikunta also, the word itself means Vaikunta, without miseries, right? So it's right there in the word. So it does make something that, yeah.
So if
Nice. Let's revel in the bliss of the spiritual world. And
And
in the
then Vaikuntha can be achieved, as Mataji was saying today, at the Jivan Mukta stage. It can be achieved right here. Right now, of course, it's all theoretical for me, but if you follow this path, then that state can also be achieved
yeah.
without anxiety. I think Mataji, you also said without anxiety,
yeah,
which is Vaikuntha.
Yeah.
yeah. In the context of this class, I think we can also view as going back to Godhead as a symptom of being a servant to the Lord. And so, our activity, which we should focus on, is being a servant to the Lord. And then a symptom of that is that we would go back home, back to Godhead. And I like what Karan Prabhu said in the chat too. how His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj said that going back to Godhead is a consciousness, and that consciousness is of always serving. I think there were people with their
Yeah.
hands raised.
Sorry, Gaur Kumar Prabhu, Vamsidhar Gopal Prabhu. I kept.
Sir Gopal Prabhu can go ahead. Yes, Prabhu, please.
Yes, yes, Prabhu. Yeah, I think this discussion was very refreshing to hear about the desire of going back to Godhead. So I just and the Sindhu Kanya's perspective and what Jagannath Gopal Prabhu added. So I wanted to share my understanding also. So this desire of going back to Godhead is actually it's very different from desire of liberation or desiring of going to higher planetary system to get rid of these material miseries and limitations of this body. Actually it includes all the good qualities, all the magnanimity or whatever good you can think of, because it's like you will be getting situated in your constitutional position of being servant, and then we go back to Godhead. So basically when we talk about service, going back to Godhead means we'll be getting established in our original position of serving Lord and His devotees. So I think that's the ultimate favor anyone can do to all the jivas. So that's why I think all our acharyas in all the texts they boldly declare this desire for going back to Godhead. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, Srila Prabhupada, and any books you read, they mention this thing of desire of going back to Godhead again and again because that's the highest and it includes everything. So I think that is another way to think about it, that when we are saying that I want to go back to Godhead, that means I want to get established in my original nature of being servant and then being closer to Lord. So, yeah, that's what I want.
Yeah, that's a very nice perspective, and I agree with that completely. And so I think from what I'm taking from that description of, going back to Godhead is we should take that statement with that much gravity. It's not like going back to Godhead means escaping troubles of the material world. Going back to Godhead in and of itself means that we are eternally being situated in service to Krishna. So we should take it with that much gravity whenever we see and say ourselves that, I want to go back to Godhead.
Thank you, dear devotees. I think we are out of time, but I just wanted to very briefly mention one small thing. So the entire Bhagavatam actually gives us a very big and important lesson of how we can go back home, back to Godhead in this birth. So the Bhagavatam begins with Janmadi Yasya Yataha, and then it ends with uh, Namami Harim Param. So that is the last verse of the Bhagavatam. So basically, the Bhagavatam is saying that once you have taken birth, if you don't realize that Namami Harim Param, that the holy name, chanting of the holy names is the essence, and congregational chanting of the holy name is the essence. And if we don't practice it, there is no escapism, or there's no way that you can escape from this material world. So that's all I just wanted to mention. But thank you, Sindhu Kanya Mataji. I know that Girija is sick, and I know how difficult it is for parents when their kids are sick and the whole night. I don't know if you got any sleep, but in spite of that, you gave such an amazing class. Um, it was very nourishing, and please take care of Girija, and thank you for nourishing us with this wonderful section, and you summarized everything so nicely. Thank you. And thank you, Jagannath Gopal Prabhu, for so sweetly and lovingly leading all of us into this wonderful pastime. And yeah, thank you for being there for everyone to guide everyone. Thank you. Hari Bol. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
I echo Gaur Kumar Prabhu's words, Sindhu Kanya Mataji. Thank you so much. Wonderful analogies, wonderful personal anecdotes, and wonderful answers to the questions that were asked. And the questions were not very simple, also, but you answered them with very good expertise and so much humility and wisdom. So thank you so much for that. And yeah, dear devotees, with this we end the section of Kapil Muni. And next week we'll discuss a little bit about the Bhagavad Gita 18.66, and following which we will begin with our new section, which a lot of you voted for, which is the section of Rishabh Dev, his life and teachings. So yeah, a lot of nice discussions to be had uh, in the future. And yeah, thank you so much again, Sindhu Kanya Mataji. And I didn't know Girija was